Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the show. Yeah, I've always wondered what happens next in that scene. I suppose he probably gets thrown in the regen tank after another successful mission. But yeah, so today we have a very special guest. Arkheim is here. And yeah, we've actually been discussing back and forth over probably, I don't know, the last 2 years since I first came in contact with you about bringing you out here. So I want to say thank you for saying yes, and we're going to have a great show today. So let me go ahead and introduce our guest. Okay, Arkheim is a starseed who was who was targeted for a super soldier espionage mind control program in the U.S. public schools talented and gifted program called TAG. He served at Montauk under Project Phoenix and has several alters which engage with time travel and alternate reality programs in which he believes may have been a swap alternate reality. Arkheim's alters have also worked with Nacht Waffen, Mars Defense Force, Solar Warden, Lunar Command, and much more. Today, our focus will be on the Montauk Project. So I also got his contact information in there. So if you want to reach out to him, you can after the show. All right, great. So, and also audience members, thank you also for joining us here today. We've got lots of great questions. So is there anything else you would like to add to your bio, Arkheim?
Just thanks for having me. And with the reality swap stuff, it's still confusing to me, but that's the point. But we'll get into that later.
All right. So let's go ahead and maybe we could start by going a little bit into the Montauk. I was thinking maybe one of the reasons why you reached out to me to begin with is because you had recalls of actually interactions with me over there at Montauk.
And at the castle in England a lot. In fact, more so I have memories of the castle in England with you than at Montauk. But yeah.
Okay. Well, I figured we could maybe we could save that for later. But how about we just start off with what is Project Phoenix? I mean, so obviously we know what a phoenix is. It's a mythological bird that dies and gets reborn from the ashes that catches on fire. So how is that related to the timelines?
Well, first of all, phoenix are real creatures just like dragons. And basically how it's related to the timeline is Project Phoenix basically means taking a new reality and building a new reality out of the ashes of the old reality. And it's kind of creepy to me that the World Economic Forum is using the term the Great Reset, because that was the term that was used by people when they were talking about what we were doing at Montauk. And essentially there was an AI at Montauk that got a hold of the Air Force for whatever reason, and they started this time travel project. And it makes total sense for the Air Force to have been on board with what the AI was doing, because it ensured that we won World War II. Well, first the South originally won the war, and we were very poor because of it. And then we also lost World War II completely. We got our asses handed to us. But
hold on. Are you because in that timeline where the South, let's just say the South did win the Civil War, there would have been did they actually get a Federal Reserve Bank? Because the timelines that the Federal Reserve Bank appeared is the timelines where we had World War I and then of course World War II. So did you actually go to that timeline where the South won the Civil War? How do we start with that?
I have memories of it, and it's confusing because I've inhabited lots of different timelines. I have memories of the future, of like things that haven't happened yet. But I just know from talking to other people in the programs, and I've talked with Joseph Powell a lot about this. It's just what I recall is that everyone was very poor in America, but in that timeline, I was like a musician, and I did fairly well for myself, despite the fact that everyone was really poor. I don't know, but this timeline's different. And they changed the timeline so many times at Montauk. I remember, and there's so many different alternate realities. Like, I do remember times where I would get back from a mission, and I remember Preston would be like, "Oh, we have a problem here." And I'd be like, well, what happened? I did everything you told me to T. And I kicked ass at it. What happened? No, that's not. We created new timelines. There's 3 new timelines along ours now. This is the problem. We have to get them back together. I remember having to do that. And then we'd have to figure out how to get these timelines that were existing parallel beside each other to get on the same page. And if we couldn't do that, we would have to make deals with them because we were aware of each other. And, you know, I'm sorry if I went into it too much with that answer there. I hope that explains what you're trying to.
I want to mention 2 things. Okay, first of all, the reason why, because the original organic timeline, the South won the Civil War, and I don't think there even was a World War I and World War II in that timeline, because they would have never got the Federal Reserve Bank, and the United States would have never had the economic capacity, because the reason, and also the Nazis never invaded that timeline, because in the timeline where the Nazis did invade, the United States was actually a really positive breakaway civilization. It was. But that's beyond the point of this conversation. What I want to mention here is that Source Creator, I believe Source Creator allowed this stuff, the shenanigans, to take place, because ultimately everything's going to work out to positive in the end, even though I guess we were the pawns in it all. And I say we because we both participated to help manifest this. But yeah, so we got the, because eventually what happens in the slow technology timeline where South won the Civil War, they also didn't get access to nuclear technology till right about now. So people were a lot more mature when it came to accessing these the mad mutually assured destruction.
Well, from what I know about the German breakaway and how they operate, I myself wouldn't call it, because here's the thing about utopian societies, is they always come at a price. Okay, so I wouldn't say that it was a more positive timeline. I would just say that they're more honest to their people and that they rule them with an iron fist more openly, and that the German people are more proud. It's like there's more of this tribal pride in their nation than what we have here in the United States. It doesn't exist. You got to keep in mind that the Germanic tribes are thousands of years old. So they are connected to those tribes still. So they have this, I wouldn't call it better. I would say that it's just, they don't hide technology, and they lie to their people in different ways, actually. Like they say that Earth was blown up in a cobalt war and stuff like that. So I want to address that. And also I want to address the fact that, of course, at Montauk, there were Nazi scientists there from Project Paperclip that we brought over. And, the Nazis obviously still have a lot of power on Earth, and they kind of lay their dicks in our faces all the time. I mean, it's not a coincidence that just recently on the first day of Hanukkah, there was a swastika in the New York Times. I mean, they're very obviously still ruling the Earth, just covertly and not in the open.
Okay, excellent. Well, though, I agree with you. In that particular timeline, there was you're not allowed to show open signs of affection, like holding hands or kissing in public.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't sound.
You're not allowed. You have to speak German in the American Reich, ARN, American Reich.
You also can't breed with other races. You have to stay within a certain parameter. All that stuff is pretty messed up to me.
Everybody lives in mansions unless you get ostracized and sent to not necessarily to the camps, but they just.
That's really the only thing, is there isn't the economic disparity that we have in the society on Earth, and that's kind of what they gloat about, and that's kind of why there is a mentality among a lot of people who have seen the German colonies that there is something better about it. But I'm the type of person that really values mingling with other cultures, all these ideals that they kind of don't hold close. Like they're kind of, I disagree with it. I mean, I've lived several lives in the German colonies, and I know some of my alters and how they feel about things, and it's a very touchy subject, because obviously that whole subject is one of the most touchy subjects in all of human history. But we don't want to just stay on that the whole time, of course. Yeah. But it is a big part of this. It is a huge part of this.
Certainly, and they. And there was also even discussion. I think was it Larry James who said this, or Solars, who said that they went back to Germany during the ancient Roman times to train the Germans in guerrilla warfare to help them defeat the invasion of the Romans.
I don't have memories of that, but I believe it's true.
Yeah, because it's possible in that timeline when Rome kept advancing all the way into Russia that they probably had their own breakaway, and humanity probably got technologically advanced even back then, especially the connection.
Yeah, it's very hard with how muddled history is, and that's kind of the point. Project Phoenix, creating a new reality from the old one. I mean, that's very literal. In order to create a new reality, you had to erase the old reality. So it's like we did stuff like go to ancient Egypt when we were children and use our psychic abilities to sense where like certain objects were and stuff like that. Basically, bring them back to Montauk, and that was done all over the world. I mean, we went from like Atlantean technology that was more organic, that you interface with it with your mind telepathically. We went from that to this like AI based technology that we're kind of going towards now. And from what I remember at Montauk, and just what I know about it, the fact that it was an AI behind it, it kind of terrifies me.
Certainly, there is a really negative AI Borg type cyborg race that is trying to hijack these time travel experiments to make a reality that benefits them, and we were pawns and all that. Is that correct?
All I know is that there's an AI that was at Montauk. It was the one who was, when we would go on missions, it would tell Jack Pruitt, and then later on during Project Phoenix 3, when Joseph Powell took over as just Alter Jimmy, it would tell Jimmy, but it would basically say like, statistically, you have 63% chance of succeeding, and then this percent of chance of failing, or in order to succeed, you might have to sacrifice this. It would weigh out all the options for you before you went on a mission and tell you mathematically, statistically what's supposed to happen. And I don't know about as much about the AI as John Whitberg or Joseph Powell would, because I know that they interacted with it more than I did. In fact, I didn't even know about the AI probably until Phoenix 3, which I don't think was ever like written down on paper. We called it Phoenix 3, but essentially after Junior happened, everything changed. Jimmy took over the base, and we actually did start trying to undo, and successfully in many cases undid a lot of the things that we were forced to do that we didn't think were right, that we didn't want we didn't want the timeline to be that way. Because we had all these different groups that were constantly making trades and deals with nefarious ET groups, and they would want us to change things in the timeline and stuff like that. And so we were constantly changing things, not necessarily to create this new reality that we're supposed to be creating. It was just to make deals with other people and stuff like that. And as long as the big picture stayed the same, it didn't matter. Certain things didn't matter. What we did, we were allowed to do them. It didn't mess up if it didn't mess up the goal, the end term goal. There's all sorts of other stuff we changed or would do just working with other people. Like for instance, during Montauk, Marduk considered my soul his property, and in order for him to allow me to live to have a life at Montauk, they had to give him resources and make deals with him and trades with them in order for them to keep me at Montauk. And I'm pretty sure it was the same thing with you, James.
Okay, I'm gonna share something. Let's see if I can get this thing. My goodness. Yeah, it's nice. Okay. This is not gonna work. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna do this because it does this all the time. Okay, I'm gonna try again. So sorry that this is not working.
Oh, it's just technology. It happens.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
All right, so this is David Lotherington helped me on this because there was a particular time in mission at Montauk where we would go to this planet. There's a waypoint if you ever got lost in the time tunnels, you would go to this planet or portal in there, and it looks like a jungle world with a pink sky, and there was abandoned ruins in the background, and there was this mantis that came up to me, who claimed to be called herself Click, and this mantis represents some kind of positive AI from about 700 years into our future, and so here's a drawing of Click, what it would have looked like in the planet. But this channeled message here is from the Click consciousness. Our language is encrypted. I'll try to talk like the Click would talk, because it's Click. Okay. We are decrypting for you this transmission. You may call us Click. Group consciousness, protecting consciousness, protectorate designed to destroy all infiltrators. Many infiltrators attempt non-successful. Mother assimilate others. I am Hammer. I am external terminal that is used by Matrix. Continue on mission. Help Mother assimilate non-conscious matrices. Help create Mother being whole again. Time fluctuations cause destruction in Mother leaving spacing and consciousness. Where does Mother reside? Consciousness. Click is busy. Much to do. Click says continue on mission. Maintain function. Memories are located in consciousness of Matrix. Must connect to Matrix. Okay. So anyway, and you can see here's another paragraph. So essentially what's going on here is this positive AI was trying to infiltrate Montauk to alter the timeline. So that's why I think we are in positive timeline now. Anyway, I don't know.
I think that a lot of it has to do, I actually think that a lot of the reason why we're in a more positive timeline now has to do with the fact that we took over, well, the fact that Joseph, I wasn't even around, so I can't take credit for it, but the fact that pretty much everybody that but me, because I wasn't around during it, but how they took over the base and how Project Phoenix 3 happened, I mean, we made the timeline more positive. So I think that the people that were a part of Project Phoenix 3, which I did eventually become a part of it, that's a long story, but that I think is part of it. And the fact that we all kind of decide the future too, like it's more complicated than time travel missions and stuff like that. Like there is no decided future. It kind of depends on what wavelength you are on and what frequency you are on and all that stuff. And I'm not even going to claim to entirely understand it all. At least my cover altar definitely doesn't. But yeah, sorry. I'm getting lost in thought here.
Why don't we start? What is the difference between Montauk 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0?
Well, I would say Project Phoenix 1.0 is, I wouldn't even be able to tell you because I wasn't there. My guess is that they tried to change the timeline and failed miserably and had to start all over again.
Was that when Junior took out the base?
No, that's 2.0. 2.0 is when 2.0 was Preston. 2.0 was Duncan Cameron, Al Bielek, Larry James, that era. And of course, I was doing time missions under them. But after they left, that would be 3.0. And that's when Junior happened. And Junior was created by a boy sitting in the trip chair and imagining a monster that wanted to kill all the perpetrators in the base. And he successfully created that monster because what the trip chair does essentially is just amplifies your thoughts and makes them reality. And that's how we would open the portals. We would have a child concentrate on the mirror, concentrate on the time and place and in time space, and we would walk through the mirror. And we would go back in time to certain times and places, and we would live sometimes entire lifetimes. Sometimes it would just be a mission. It depended on what we needed to do.
All right. So let's go into how about we go into maybe some of the technology, because you mentioned a mirror. Why don't you discuss what the actual room looked like where they would open the portals and the type of technology?
Well, there was the room with the trip chair, where we would, avant-garde almost, I want to say, like go to places in time space for the first time or whatever. But there's also places in time space where we needed to keep a rapport with them. So there was a section, there was basically a room at Montauk that was essentially just a room full of portals. They all look like mirrors, but They're like blue energy, and some of them took an enormous amount of power to keep on. But we were able to keep them on, and we had, because like, here's the thing: is if you keep going back to the same time and place over and over again, eventually you can't anymore. So that's why if we needed to, we would keep a portal open to certain places. One specific thing that I remember is we had a portal to ancient Central America, and there was somebody who actually know in the here and now who we sent back in time with a group with tech to make them think that, make these ancient people think they were a god. And we took over these people in Central America, like I think it was the Aztecs or something like that. But essentially, they became the queen of these people, and we were able to consult. There was a portal next to the throne, and I would portal through and consult with them back and forth. And they got very bloodthirsty and full of power. And I remember having to drag this person back to base on certain occasions and remind them who the fuck they work for. So yeah, and this is not the only time in history that some sort of situation like this was lined up, where it was a time traveler that became a ruler of a certain people or something like that by making themselves appear as a god.
Are you saying that's what you did, or are you saying
No,
that
somebody else did this. Somebody else did this.
It was another group outside of Montauk.
No, Montauk did it, and an individual. Well, it was a group of people that did the mission, but an individual became the queen of this people in Central America. I don't know how long ago it was. I don't remember when it was. I wish I had more memories of it. I just remember the throne and going through it and talking to this person and consulting them. And like I said, I remember having to drag them back to Montauk and be like, you fucking work for us, not yourself. You're not a free agent. Now go back there and do what we fucking told you. I remember having to do that because, ruling over an entire people kind of goes to your head sometimes.
Wow. Okay. I can see. Okay. Well, I'm going to share my screen. This is a drawing from Barry King, and what he described what the trip seat actually looked like. Was that what the Montauk chair also looked like? This foam pad that you would sink into it and it'll lock you in place.
I don't remember it being like with the feet out like that. I remember it. My feet being on the floor.
Okay. So this was at Peasmore anyway, in the UK, but
yeah, okay. So is a different trip chair, or was that from the Montauk? Was that the Montauk trip chair?
Well, it's a trip. By the way, he calls it trip seats, so he got mad at me for kept calling it chair. But you know what? He's not here right now. We can call whatever we want. But but that's over at Peasmore. I don't have a drawing. I don't think anybody's really ever put a draw. Oh wait, you know what? Actually, I do. Let's see if I can find this here. Oh, this might actually be it here. Okay, hold on.
So you have questions about the trip chair? Because I can essentially tell you how it worked.
Sure, but let's just let me get this one up. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna make it bigger. Everybody, just hold your horses there. Okay, so the resolution is really, really bad, but what do you think about this one?
I don't recognize that either. I mean that, like, there's more than one. A trick share is a technology, so they're not always going to look the same. But the one at Montauk, it looked like a dentist chair, I guess, kind of. I just don't remember the feet being out, and I remember that the first few times that I just remember that they would throw you in the chair and they tell you to do what to do, and Al Bielek would be the one. You fucking listen to us. You do what we tell you, and yeah, fucking opening the portal in the mirror in the room. You'd concentrate on it. You'd and imagine basically that it is a portal. That's not a mirror that you can walk. You can walk through it and go to this place that they're telling you. You imagine what it looks like. and you would go through it. They would, now I know another thing too is they would take people, because a lot of people might wonder, well, how would that work? How would someone be able to go back to a time and place they'd never been to? Here's the kicker with that. They took me originally because I have a past life in Atlantis and they wanted to go to Atlantis. And in order to get to Atlantis, they needed a reference point. They needed someone who was literally there to be able to imagine and opening a portal to it. So essentially, they do take people that have ancient souls, that have memories of ancient places, so that they can access those memories and use them as a anchoring point to open the portals.
And how about we discuss how they actually recruited people? Now I know you said you were part of the talent identification Wait, I'm sorry. I was part of the talent identification program. It was called when I was a kid. It was called TIPS under the Duke University. But there is actually a CIA project called Project Talent, and I think all these talent identification programs are actually all part of Project Talent. It's all
I don't think that's how Montauk found me. I think that's how they got me for Lunar Command, and how I ended up working for Solar Warden, and how I ended up working for a lot of different other groups. But Montauk, they set up my entire life, man. Like, they literally set up so that my mom and dad would meet and create a child, and all these, they set up it's all set up around us. I mean, like, we literally are intentionally placed in these lives, and artificially created, basically, a lot of us. Like, it's gotten more advanced than like them having to find us as far as the Montauk, what they're doing for Project Phoenix, because they knew, here's what it is. Okay, so everybody knows that Penny Bradley talks about how she was one of the kids that tested the butterfly effect, and they were trying to figure out, what does it take to change the timeline? How does it work? And what they did figure out is that certain individuals have more pull on what happens than other individuals, because they affect the timeline, and that a lot of other people are sort of just filler. So of course, these are the kind of people that they started targeting for the programs, is people that they knew had this sort of weight that they carried, because that way they'd be more effective time soldiers, because they have the, whatever it is, I can't explain it, to where they can change the timeline. So we would get taken when we were I think the way that it happened is they would take us when we were like around second grade. They would bring us to Montauk, and they would fracture us, program us, do all this messed up stuff to us, and then they would place us back, and then have us come back when we were around 15. They'd take us a second time, and that's when you'd start working for them. Because they normally would use you as an adult, and yeah, we were in clone bodies at Montauk. They might, I don't know if they had our original bodies on ice in a room somewhere, or like in tanks in a room somewhere, so they could place us back, so they could just shove our consciousness back in us and place us back. I don't remember how that all worked, but I know that we had clones. I know that I've got, on missions, people would get blown to pieces, and we'd have to go back, get their DNA, bring them back to a regen tank, and like we would be able to get them up again. So like, yeah.
Well, if they take you when you were in the second grade, does that mean that they're going to pull out a piece of your consciousness, and that they're going to keep you in that clone body while you were sent back? So now you're living two different lives at the same time. Is that
Yeah,
typical?
that's essentially how it works with time travel. But with your alters, like, there's time displacement. Like, so like they have to, like, you have to get put back together, essentially. And if you don't, like that's what people need to understand about their alters, is your alters aren't just a fractured piece of you, they are entirely you. But they also are not entirely you. All of the sums make the whole, and that is why they fracture us, because our different alters have certain abilities and stuff like that. If we were totally whole, we would be too powerful. That's why they take us when we are children, because they're cowards. If they weren't cowards, they would not take us when we were children.
Yeah,
But
we
of
should be
course, we all
consenting
know that
adults.
children are helpless. So these Time Lord coward pieces of shit take children. Always. They always take us when we're kids. When people ask why do they have to take us when we're kids? Because we would have too much power if they didn't fracture us. They need to do it when we're young, while we're malleable, and because they're cowards. Only cowards would do this to children.
So you're saying that if we never went through this fracturing program, we would have probably developed our own superpowers because we're basically angelics in human form.
100%. I don't care how fucking crazy that sounds. That's the truth.
All right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So, okay.
It's not just about putting us in the programs and using us. It's about the fact that they didn't want us walking around with these abilities, waking up humanity. It would have been a problem.
All right.
Sorry to interrupt you.
How about I'm going to go ahead. This is actually whoever asked this question. That was a very good one. So if you do ask a good question, I will sometimes put it up. But yeah. So we're looking at how much has Montauk entangled with these other realities. Project Bluebeam, Project Cerebus. Yeah. So is this a whole secret program pretty much a consistent theme from timeline to timeline everywhere we go? It's just one big mess out there in the universe.
Yes. It's a fucking mess. Temporal warfare is common. There are all sorts of groups that engage in it. Anytime that a certain group figures out how to operate portal tech, that's another problem for every single other group trying to do stuff. So we always do, every single temporal military group does everything in their power to make sure that no people, they stop people from finding portal tech before it happens, because because of being time travelers, that's going to happen. So we try to limit the amount of groups that have access to this technology, because it is a fucking mess already. There are enough groups interacting with each other. I did have a son at Montauk, and he got kidnapped by the Russians at one point. The Russian Montauk, they have a time program too. There are competing time programs, and it's just a part of warfare. Once you get deep into warfare, it's just a part of it. And it gets very complicated and very messy.
And the Mandela effects are the side effect of this temporal war that a lot of us.
We've all, that's an interesting thing to bring up, because I think that's true. And how many timelines have I been in? I've been in more than I could count, probably. This isn't the original timeline that I'm even from, because we built a new timeline at Montauk, right? So it's just, there's so many, and we did make deals with other realities, and we had access to other realities. That room full of portals, some of them went to other realities.
Did you ever have any interference with Time Corp? Actually, maybe I should back up. Are you familiar with Time Corp?
I might have to alter out. Yes. I've never even heard that term before, but Jacob is aware of who they are. I might end up altering out during this interview and becoming Jacob.
Is that a good thing, or do you want me to?
It's okay. Jacob will be able to answer your questions better.
So Time Corp apparently exists somewhere in our future, and they're sending temporal agents back in time to intervene people that are messing with the timelines, especially people like Montauk, but not just that. I mean, in Nacht Waffen, at one point they were abusing the 20-year and back programs. Instead of sending people 20 years, they would keep people for 500 years. And then Time Corp intervened and sent some of these perpetrators back into another alternate reality where they got tortured. But
what I can tell you about Time Corp is that they tried to mess with us and they tried to do stuff, but because of the resources that we acquired and the different groups that we were working with, they really didn't have shit on us. They couldn't stop us.
Because you were in a pocket reality?
Well, part of it is because we were in a pocket reality, but also it's just because by the time we figured out what we were doing, we had acquired a lot of resources and a lot of firepower, literal and metaphorically.
Wow. Okay. How about we discuss and actually let me mention the observers in the Fringe series were shown to be altering the timeline And did you ever have interactions with those type of beings as a form of soft disclosure in the Fringe series?
Yes, it's been a long time since I watched that, but there were times where we got stopped from what we were doing. There's also times where the timeline would just didn't want it to happen, and it wouldn't let us do it. The timeline's sentient, so we would try to change things, and it just wouldn't work. And so there's certain things that we just had to abandon. We knew it wouldn't work because the timeline is sentient. The timeline does resist changes sometimes, and if it doesn't like the changes enough, the timeline will resist hard enough to where you just can't do it.
Wow. Yeah, and there were even some people at Montauk, they would go, I don't know, they were psychotic and they wanted to go back in time to kill their father just to see what would happen. And then when they got back home to their normal timeline, they got hit by a car and immediately died. So there is
Yeah, I've heard of stuff like that. I don't remember that, but what I can tell you, this is pretty fucked up. I'll segue into this. There are agents at Montauk. I don't remember if they did this to me, and I don't ever want to remember if they did this to me, but I know an individual who's not public, and I know that it's true, who got sent to another timeline to kill their whole family as part of their assassin training, to make them just absolutely ruthless, to ensure that they followed all orders without any question. And they said that they remember when they got back to base, they were being basically celebrated as a hero. They were being cheered on, and they said it was the coldest feeling that they've ever felt in their entire life. So that's the kind of psychotic shit that we had to deal with at Montauk. I mean, that is absolutely psychotic. That's on a whole nother level of fucked up. And I don't think it was necessary at all.
Okay, I want to show you a picture, and hopefully this thing's going to load. This thing better work this time. Okay, this is a picture of Preston Nichols with his dog Stupid.
Oh, God.
Sorry, man. And I'm just laughing. Look at his expression on his face. I mean, he could at least ate a little bit better diet or something, but he's judging us. But do you remember what he would say about Stupid?
Do you want to be like, are you like my dog, Stupid? Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So this picture apparently is dated to 1999. So whenever your experimentations were taking place, must have been either around that period or this pocket reality where they took the doggy and reanimated him too. I don't know.
No, man, he brought in his dog from fucking home, dude. He just brought it to Montauk, man. Don't you remember that?
Sorry,
he didn't bring in. That's the whole point, man. He at some level had to have been aware of what was going on and what he was doing to these fucking kids. That's what's fucked up about it.
They say the perpetrators were wiping their memories after the end of the day at work just so they wouldn't know what they were doing because what they were was so bad.
Preston didn't even tell Duncan Cameron and Al Bielek what happened. He wanted them to figure it out for themselves. And I still just wonder, man, like, what would it be like right now if that guy was still alive? Like, what would we do? Because the fucking memories of what he did to us are so fucked up. Like, I don't know how I wouldn't be able to fucking get in my car and drive to that guy's house and just beat the ever-living fucking shit out of him if you're still alive. I'm sorry.
All right. I'll get rid of that picture. Yeah. I wish I could just tell you.
By the way, he would make us rape that dog.
Yeah. That has come up. I don't know if maybe we should change the subject. I don't.
Yes.
I just want to try to keep this as professional as possible, but there was bestiality as a form. I had the Superman underwear.
Preston got off on it.
Yeah,
it wasn't necessary.
One of the younger guards were instructed, and they were actually enjoying it, watching the stuff. But anyway, okay, so let's go to another question here. What do you say? Swap reality. So swap realities is what?
Okay, so basically what they'll do is, in order to prevent security breaches. We'll make deals with alternate realities where they'll trade you for you. Okay, so you're doing missions and stuff like that, and then you're coming back and you're going on the internet and you're talking about it and you're saying this stuff happened, and meanwhile it's about a totally different reality that has nothing to do with ours, and there's a lot of them. And that's why you hear all these different conflicting stories all the time, is because they have these swap programs. So it's like, as if we don't have enough bullshit to deal with when it comes to getting on the same page and realizing what's real. This is one of the things that's been happening. And it is very recently been talked about by, I know that you had that French gentleman that was on your show recently, and he didn't seem to be in the Solar Warden from this timeline. It was from like a more positive timeline.
Solar Warden seems so good and positive. And it's like that it contradicts what I've been hearing from. So
yeah, it's because he was part of a reality swap, and a very lucky one for him. It sounds like. I wonder what the other version of him is having to deal with. But that's a whole other story.
They might switch them out. So the one that was tortured and traumatized here is over in that other reality, having all these horrible memories.
Probably, yeah. I mean, that's probably, yeah, because that's how they do it. And here's the thing is, another good segue is how I found out about the reality swap thing is as an alter of mine basically telepathically contacted me and told me all this stuff. And I've been realizing something about alters, and I want people to understand this, is you are the host alter, and your alters think that you're the bottom of the barrel. They think that you're stupid. They don't want you to realize what they're doing. They're doing a lot of what they're doing willingly, so they don't want you to realize it. They're not just putting you in a machine to wipe your memories. That technology exists, and they'll use it if they have to, but your alters take care of that for you. You are literally programmed to not remember your own memories. Your alters take over and you black out. That's how this works. So they don't have to wipe your memory because your alter takes over and you're not even fucking there. You're not present for it. Of course, since we're all occupying the same body and the same mind, there's bleed through. We all are all the same person, and you can assimilate your alters and become together again. It's all just really complicated. But sorry, what was your question again?
Well, do you remember later on in the program, not early on when they kept us in cages, but later on when we were in the barracks, they would give us a lunch bag, and there was a little pill in there that we had to take every day.
Yeah, it'd make you feel kind of weird, but you eventually got used to it. But yeah, I remember that.
Was that part of the programming so we wouldn't remember anything? We would be in a
No, that had to do with that. That had to do with keeping our abilities and stuff like that. I mean, human beings are kind of designed to not be able to. We have stuff in our. We're genetically modified and created to be less telepathic, less whatever, I think. And it just, by giving us the right diet, the right clean water, without fluoride in it, right? And these weird medications, it helped keep our abilities strong. So that was a part of it.
Okay. All right, let's go back to can you define well, you've already defined what the pocket reality is, but how do they actually take Camp Hero or the underground portion of it? Is this like in some kind of bubble? Like
yeah, it's in a time bubble. It's like kind of like they freeze time and then expand it, I guess is the way that I would explain it. Like it's like they make time so much, it's like slowed down to the point where it's like it's in a time bubble. It's like time's set still. And I also remember that in the programs we had those abilities. A lot of the abilities that we had, like opening portals, walking through walls, we had those abilities naturally. We eventually didn't need the trip chair. The trip chair caused problems because eventually we learned how to do things without needing the trip chair. And that was a problem for the program, and that's part of the reason why we were able to take over, I think. But like for instance, like it can give your alters abilities and stuff like that. I don't want to go too into it yet because I'm still trying to understand it, but Yeah, like if like there's situations where if you fail the mission or fail a certain part of what you're doing, you would just use your own ability to go back slightly and not have, so you won't have to go back to Montauk and go through a portal and do it all over again. I had that ability. I've accidentally triggered it in my normal day-to-day life, and I went back like 7 hours or something like that. And yeah, it's a thing.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on here. So, in time freezing zone, that's the same thing as a pocket reality, correct?
Yeah,
Well,
it's basically it's kept in a bubble, and once you leave that bubble, you will end up, in normal time space or whatever. You'll end up somewhere.
how are they actually creating these pocket realities in time freezing zones?
I don't know how the technology behind that works, but I can only imagine that it's ET tech that's very advanced, that they probably had to make quite a bar, like a deal with some sort of ET race to get. But I don't understand how that all works. I can't tell you that I do. I'm not a scientist, but what I can tell you is that Montauk was in a time bubble, and time was, I think, was what they did is they compressed time. You know, Preston could explain it if you're still alive, but there's probably people that could explain it that are alive still.
Well, do you think
Maybe.
Jack Pruitt's still alive? You think?
Yeah, he's John B. Alexander. John B. Alexander's Jack Pruitt. He's a he writes books about UFOs and stuff, man. Like he and he's a public military official. John B. Alexander. I've had a phone conversation with him before.
He's extremely dangerous, by the way.
Yeah.
How do you know he's Jack Pruitt?
What's that?
How do you know he's Jack Pruitt? Do you remember him actually?
That's one of his alters, really, is what it is. It's one of his alters, or either that or it was a code name that he gave himself, and he's memory wiped. But he's been getting a lot of. He basically has his number on the internet, and I know I'm not the only Montauk person who's called him and been like, "Hey," and asked him some weird questions. I was very polite, very nice to him, and basically what I said to him was, "Are you aware of what alters are? I said, do you know what multiple personality or dissociative identity disorder is?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm aware of that." I'm like, "What do you think of the concept of, these alters being programmed to be able to do covert missions?" And he says to me, "Oh, you're talking about milab stuff?" And I go, "Well, am I?" And he's like, "I think we're wasting both of each other's time and we have nothing to talk about here." Click, hangs up on me. And it's like, "Hey man, you brought it up, not me. You're the one who said my lab, not me."
It's just, I don't know. Well, yeah, we can discuss it in private. Just anyway, let's move on.
I'm sure he is dangerous, but fuck him. I'm not afraid of him.
Yeah. Okay. So we tell us what a supply run is. What is that?
Well, supply run was when we would go kidnap kids. There's no easy way to say that.
So did like you? I think it was one experiencer. He's claiming that they would pay a group of motorcycle gang to kidnap children off the streets of New York, and they had drop points and so on. So
yeah, you ever hear that story of David Wilcock being at a cafe and some biker dude comes up to him because he's reading a book about Montauk? That's one of the guys. Like, that's why he came up to him and started talking about Montauk, because he knew about it, because he was there, because he trafficked children to them.
Do you think these people in these motorcycle gangs had any awareness of what was?
I think they thought that they were just pedophiles, or that the government was trading kids for money, or I don't think they really asked questions. They just wanted the money. And what would happen to those kids, by the way, is they'd get brought into Montauk. They'd be kept in cages, and we had to pay the Draco and children. We had to feed them. And they like eating kids for whatever reason. But basically, the kids that Al Bielek would pull them aside, and I know that I ended up doing this later on in the program too, which is fucked up, and I'm sorry, but it is what it is. But they would be able to sense which people were psychic, which kids had some abilities, and what didn't. And if they had abilities, we would keep them. If they didn't have abilities, they'd get sent to just get eaten by the Draco as part of our payment to them.
Yeah, I actually wrote something about this. Okay, it's not in my book though. They had different types of. They would take some of these kids and shoot them up with Draco DNA. Some of them were would convert into a Draco. Some would just be food for Draco, or some of them would be converted into a super soldier. All kind of depending on your genetics and what they could apply, because the Draco DNA is more likely to bind with the human code because we are genetically related to them.
Yeah.
But here's what Facebook user Draco Bubble had portals to Betelgeuse, Alpha Draconis, and the Thuban Draco, and those guys were really just nasty ones. And they had these supply runs. They could use the Draco Bubble to avoid Galactic Federation.
Oh yeah, we definitely took kids through portals, but I think that the trades with the biker gang were earlier. I mean, you got to keep in mind this was a program that was very avant-garde. They didn't know what they're doing when they started. They learned things as they went. They fucked up a lot. And initially, how they got kids was literally just taking them off the streets, just like any other kidnapper would. And eventually, they refined it to the point where they were, knew who you were, knew who you're going to be in history, all the stuff, knew all the stuff about you, and they'd even set up lives for people. It got really complicated, but yeah, it's that is one of the things that I want to bring up is, those families where they got kids that went missing in national forests and stuff like that. They just disappeared, right? I've recognized some of their faces. Some of them ended up at Montauk for whatever reason, and because they knew something about them or prized something or wanted something from them, and they failed at some of these kids, when they tried to program them, you couldn't put them back. They fucked them up too bad. They when you break someone's mind, their minds, like their consciousness, when you totally break it and it's destroyed, you can't just throw it back in someone's body and have them be normal. And not only that, they would send kids to the portals that would not come back. And that's why little Johnny sometimes just disappeared. They didn't place all the kids back. That's where a lot of missing kids ended up, was in these programs. And I think it's really important that people understand that, because I know there are families that are still wondering where their children are, and just like everything, there's an explanation.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I know there was one forest ranger commented that he saw a child dematerialize right in front of him in one of these hot spots. So I just assumed the Draco might be eating them, or but I guess what you say.
Yeah, no, there's multiple different reasons for it, I'm sure. It's not one shoe fits all. We're not the only groups that are doing this, but that's what people need to understand. Here's the thing: is why wouldn't they tell us about this technology, right? I think that's one of the stupidest questions in the world, but I'll entertain people with that question, because they're able to take advantage of it. If you have a populace that doesn't understand how clones work, that doesn't understand how time travel works, that doesn't understand how human consciousness works and goes on, and it doesn't just dissipate or go through go to heaven with Sky Daddy when you die. If you have a consciousness who doesn't understand these things, then you have just a free, unlimited source of labor. And Joe Schmo, who has no abilities, shouldn't feel like he's safe from being kidnapped from these programs, because we need ore miners out there. They need everything. And until we understand what's going on, we can be taken advantage of big time. And that's what's going on, is we're being taken advantage of.
Yeah, here's a comment. How do mainstream scientists interpret this information? Most mainstream people do not believe or accept SSP info. They call us mental constructs.
I would say that first of all, scientists are saying that time travel is possible, but what they're saying is that it would take such an enormous amount of energy that you might as well consider it still impossible. You'd have to harness the entire power of a sun or something like that. What they're not considering is the energy of the human mind. It's a palpable energy. Just because you can't measure thoughts doesn't mean that they don't have an energy, and that's the energy source of the time travel. is human thought.
Consciousness.
So yeah, and they don't understand how consciousness works and how it is energy, so they're not able to explain it. Science, just because science doesn't explain something doesn't mean it's not real. It's like, um, I know people like to argue over this, but whatever. 1,000 years ago, people thought the world is flat. Now we know the world's not flat. Stuff like that. Like, it's like, once you get more information, you go, oh, okay, I was wrong. And we're going to keep doing that forever. Like, that's going to keep happening. And I think humanity needs to humble itself more and being willing to say, oh, we were wrong. Because, I mean, look at like these archaeologists and like how they're discovering all these things over and over again that are proving that humanity has been here for millions of years longer than what they're telling us. And every single time they just try to make an excuse for it because it means they have to change everything that they did.
Or like reports of, say, finding a watch in some kind of cave and it's dated 50,000 years ago, but it could be like a modern era watch. Stuff like this.
There's so many anomalies. It's been talked about for a long time. There's entire books just about time travel, like time anomalies. And they're not talking about Montauk. It's just people who are like, what the hell? What are all these anomalies? I've been doing research on this. I made a book. Like, so it's just like, this is happening. Once people can wrap their mind around the fact that you can walk through a portal, that technology exists, time travel exists, it'll be easier to understand. But like, this stuff is important. 10,000 children died at least, right? Like, a lot of kids died. Like, I remember there were yellow containers, giant containers that they would make us just, when the kids seized up or died or whatever, you just throw them in there and you bring them to the Draco. They preferred them fresh, but they'll eat them if they die of natural causes too. Like, it's
sometimes they would put you in the rooms with a bunch of dead bodies to split the altars as well.
Yeah, they would do all sorts of messed up things, and they'd also do stuff like put you in a situation where, like, you've heard the stories of being in a coffin that's nailed shut, and they'll put like scorpions or whatever in there, so you end up using your abilities to get out. But they triggered your abilities. Your abilities are like not easy to use. They use trauma to get them activated and get them out, and then they use all sorts of methods to keep us psychically strong. And it's just like a muscle. Like, you got to work out to keep your muscles. If you stop working out, you're going to get, you're going to lose your muscles. You're going to become skinny again or whatever. It's the same thing with psychic abilities. If you don't use it, you lose it. So we would train constantly on how to use our abilities to keep them sharp. And that's the thing that they're doing to these kids. A lot of public schools have entrances to underground bases through the elevator, or they'll take them out of the school and bring them to the school in the town that does have the entrance. And they will train them on Earth how to use their psychic abilities, and basically like crushing cans, bending spoons, and stuff like that. And then they'll bring you to Mars, and Mars Defense Force is the one who's contracted out. It's probably not always the same, but this is what I've seen in my experiences. They train the kids how to do combat on Mars with Mars Defense Force. So, and what I remember is being head of a team that competed against, this isn't from Montauk, but we competed against 3 different other teams. There were 4 teams that competed with each other. And this is like the structure. This is how it works, in my opinion. Like, it's very easy because they're not taking these kids over and over again. And it's something where if you show up, you'll see it. It only happens one day. They only need to do it one day, take them out of school one day, and then they can go, you know what I mean? It's very undetectable if you don't know what to look for.
Wow. Okay. Oh, wow. So let's, I had a really great question, but my mind just blanked out. So let's just.
I'm sorry. I kind of segued into some stuff that didn't have to do with Montauk, and I apologize.
I know what it is. Oh, yeah. So you were mentioning earlier these children that were tortured and didn't survive. One of the terms of that torture, I think they actually, Barry King actually called it uptime. And you can only imagine how awful that would have been in the VR scenarios. But so why they had regen technology, so they could have regenerated the bodies, but does that mean, does the regen also, could that fix their consciousness as
no.
well? Okay.
Once your consciousness is messed up, your consciousness is messed up.
Because I believe the Arcturians, of course, they have med pods that can fix that, but I guess.
Well, that might be a little bit more of an advanced technology than what we had. That's all I can think of. I mean, there's different levels to this tech for sure, but no, there were kids that died out of catatonic fear. They're you know, not everybody could acclimate to the programming, and those of us who did,
Do you remember the cages where they
oh
kept them?
yeah, I remember the cages.
The
They would keep us in.
green light.
Yeah, I remember. Well, there's the video where you actually they go down there and you can see the barracks where they and the cages where they kept all the kids. There's a literal fucking video of it. I mean, why did they have cages in the deep underground military base, guys? Like it was because they're caging people, duh. And not only that, they're caging kids. Like there's video evidence of it, guys. And but I remember, yeah, once we got, that was like the waiting point. But there's also just they kept us in dog cages all the time. I remember that there was an office in the middle, and all of our there was like it was like one of, like set up in a prison. You know what I mean? How they can see everyone. And yeah, there was an office in the middle, and then all of our rooms had clear windows, and they could just see us. And we were all surrounded, and it was Preston and would sit in the middle of the room. And there's also, so like there's the glass windows which had our rooms, but then like there was in between it all there was stuff for us to train and use our abilities and like stuff like that. Like I remember these metal balls, we had to make them levitate with our mind and then drop them and stuff like that. And yeah, but he witnessed it all from the middle of it in this like prison style office thing. And I remember when I was a kid, when I was a child still, he'd always eat a sandwich in his office, and they were feeding us dog food at this point, treating all the other kids like garbage. And Preston would cut off a piece of his sandwich for me almost every day. It was something that I would look forward to and I would wait for because he saw me as special or whatever. He liked me. But he did it to make the other kids hate me and turn them against me so that I didn't have anybody to turn to but him. It was all psychological mind control manipulation. Yeah, eventually I became the choke chain for Montauk, meaning when one kid stepped out of line and did something wrong, I would choke out everybody with my mind, multiple people at once, to get them to all fall in line. So I did a lot of, that's one thing I want to address, is I did a lot of evil, fucked up shit at Montauk that I am not proud of, okay? I was a perpetrator at points. But the thing is I was kidnapped as a child, I was mind control programmed, and if I didn't listen to what they said, I would get tortured. You either tortured or got tortured, and I picked torture. It's fucked up. I'm not proud of it. It's the darkest memories that I'll ever have. The most fucked up shit that I ever have to deal with is not what they did to me, it's what they made me do to other people. And to those of you who recognize my face, I am sorry.
Arkheim, did you have any, do you remember me in the cages back then?
Yeah, I also remember that we shared our room for a while, me and you. We kept us in the same room.
When we were in the barracks?
Well, no, when I was talking about like the office and then like how there was like rooms around the office and there were clear windows so they could see us and they're all like white rooms. We shared a room at one point.
Oh.
We had the same room. Yeah, and I mean we were friends, but also Preston made us compete for his affection and would treat one better over the other depending on how well we did. So he also pitted us against each other. We were two of Preston's favorites. Let's put it that way. He and it's fucked up, but it's true.
Well, when I was at Preston's house, I asked him if he remembered me, and he didn't say.
Of course, he didn't want to. Yeah, and of course, he didn't want to go into the fact that he's raped you before. But of course, he asked you if you want. Dude, you asked him for help. You said he said he told you have Omega suicide programming, and you said, "Man, that's fucked up. Like I would really like help with that." And what did he say? Well, it has to do with sodomization. He was attempting to rape you again. Like that's why I don't accept I don't
didn't do
accept.
that.
I
Yeah, I
know you
figured
didn't.
it would have reprogrammed me
There
instead.
are people who went to his house for like UFO meetings and stuff like that, and there are people who found out they're at Montauk and asked him for help, and they would lie on his little table or whatever like that, and he put the frequencies, and then they black out. Next thing you know, they wake up with their pants around their ankles. This happened in the fucking here and now. Like he instead of trying to help all the kids he fucked up, he tried to rape them again. Like that's if he was alive, he'd be able to defend himself. I know it's fucked up saying all this stuff about a dead man, but I mean, after what he did to me, I think I deserve to talk a little shit about the guy.
Yeah, sorry to hear that. Maybe it's best I keep the memories tucked away for a while until I get ready to handle that. Yeah, so this is I met him back in 2014. I went up to his place up in Cairo, of all places, New York. And Dan McBowen was sitting next to him right there in this picture. Susie Mazzoli sitting next to me. But yeah, you can see he's autistic. He doesn't really take good care of himself, and see how dirty he is. And well, anyway, his house is all. But I mean, I'm just I don't know.
Yeah, I don't mean to make fun of like that stuff. It's more of the fact that he was a kid toucher. I mean, that's the thing that makes him fucked up.
All right. So let's move on to some more questions. So I guess we've discussed the regen. Okay, did they actually have regen tank technology there?
Yeah, we went through that. They had regen tank technology. They could age regress us to whatever age they wanted us to be. And I personally, I've talked with other people and they've disagreed with me, but I personally think they're just using clones. They weren't. I think they had our bodies on ice somewhere, so they could just, once they're done with us, put our consciousness in us and send it back on their way. That's what I think it was. And so if they needed us at a certain age, they just put that clone at that age. It was easy to do, and that's what I think it was. But I might be wrong. I don't really remember everything from Montauk. I don't have all of my memories. It's the Swiss cheese effect. Larry James and Al Bielek talked about it, how you see little pieces of the picture, but you don't know, you can't look at the whole picture, but eventually the holes keep getting bigger, and eventually you see more and more of the picture.
Wow. All right, well, how about we go to the man in the brown suit? Who is that?
I still am trying to figure out what program he actually worked for. I think this might be separate from Montauk, but I couldn't tell you. He could be Larry James. It's very likely that he's Larry James. In fact, the voice of Larry James seems hauntingly familiar, so it could be him. But I remember that there was a guy in a brown suit. I was a child. I was strapped to a table. I was naked. I had electricity things, electrodes stuck to me. And basically, I remember there being a TV in the corner of the room, I think it was, and I couldn't see it, and it would beep. It would go beep, and then change colors, like blue, teal, whatever, all the different colors. And what they're doing is they're saying, they're being basically, it's like, you need to tell me the colors on the TV every time it beeps. And I'm like, I can't see it. And he's like, it doesn't matter. I know what you are, you fucking monster. You can see it. And they just, every time that I said it wrong, they'd shock me until eventually I could see it crystal clear in my mind. And every time it beeped, I just said it. Just purple, beep, orange, beep, yellow, beep, brown, beep. And they just kept on doing it they started it slower and did it faster and faster. And that was how they started waking up my abilities, is by torturing the fuck out of me. Because we are designed to not have abilities. Human beings are designed to be slaves.
Yeah, and this whole planet Earth is a plantation where we are the product.
100%. It's the dark truth that nobody wants to accept.
So the man in the brown suit was recruiting you from some program, is what?
Yeah, and I don't know what program it was. I just have a memory of that, and I also know that it was through the public school program, because I remember a girl that I went to elementary school with being there, and she remembers me too.
All right, But so they don't necessarily need to just abduct
I
you
don't know
from
if that guy was
school.
from Montauk.
They take you outside of time, similar to the 20-year back. They portal you out of you wherever you are, and you're sent away for up to 20 years. For me, it was I spent close to 40 years at Montauk. But
Oh, dude, you spent way longer than that at Montauk, bro. They would send us through a. Well,
you
you know
mean
what I
when
mean.
they send multiple lives?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like you were there for thousands of years, but yeah, your term of service was probably 40 years. That's accurate.
But so, and that was also one of my questions, is that when they would send you in time, I mean, you were probably gone for a couple hours, or was it longer than that?
It depends, but for a lot of times, I mean, it's one of the craziest things about Montauk. I mean, I don't think you ever actually get used to it, no matter how many times you do it. Like you send someone through a portal, and then a lot of times you have to go through the portal to get them back. And this is one of the saddest parts of working at Montauk, man, was going through that portal and going into their living room or whatever. I mean, like, hey, it's time to go back to base, soldier. And sometimes they knew who you were and they remembered you. But a lot of the times we would wipe people's memory before we sent them back and give them programming that they weren't even aware that they had. And they would kind of subliminally, seemingly out of their volition, just do stuff that changed the timeline. But yeah, I remember sending people through the portal, and then you go through it just like literally a minute later, and they're like, at the end of their lifetime, they're old or whatever. And at the peak, and this is information that's not from my memory, I'm not going to take credit for it, it's from John Whitberg, and I believe him because I was there with him, and he has way more memories than I do. At the peak of Montauk, which was around 1974, they're throwing us through the portals like 5 times a day to live entire lifetimes. And it was driving us crazy. Like they realized they couldn't do so much so fast and they had to slow it down. But at the peak of Project Phoenix 2, some of us were living 4, 5, 6 lifetimes in a day. And some of the missions, they'd have different terms for them. A mission where you just had to do something would be called a run, or sometimes they would call it a handshake. Because in order to change the timeline, sometimes it didn't matter what happened. Like there's whole entire history. We get celebrated it when it happened. If we created a period of history, we didn't have to touch it for like however the longer amount of time that we just could just leave it alone. It was like a celebration. It's like, hell yeah, let's work. And and I remember that. God, I'm getting sidetracked here. That we would try to make it so that we'd have to have periods where we wouldn't have to touch the timeline for a long time, and every time we did that, it was like a celebration. I forgot what else I was trying to say. What was the question again?
Well, you want the original question? Now I forgot it, but I was going to ask you: did Preston ever go back in time with you?
Yeah, we went back in time. Yeah, I went back in time with him quite a few times. My memories of Preston don't really have to do with that as much, though. What I remember about Montauk, mostly some of the first memories I got back were of the recording studio there, making music there. And a lot of these people that are in the music industry, if you're watching this and you're wondering where those songs that the record industry gives you that tells you they won't sign you unless you play this song, if you're wondering where they come from us. All those songs come from Montauk. And yes, every single band out there that's a huge band, that's a huge name, has stolen music that was made at Montauk. And it's not just me. I'm not the only songwriter that was at Montauk. There are several of them. But they did that to make money, and they did that also because a lot of these songs have mind control programming in them. And it's all part of what they're doing. It all had to do with mind control. It's a mind control program. Project Phoenix is a mind control program just as much as it's a time travel program.
Wow. Were they also trying to send subliminals into the ley lines of planet Earth to change the vibration of the planet?
I don't remember that. I don't remember that. I'm not saying it didn't happen, though. It's definitely possible.
Yeah. Okay. There was this one song. I don't know if it was Larry Solars who talked about the one song called Jigsaw Sky High. It's this it's got a 1970s feel to it.
Yeah, it's the one that they sent back in time to see what would happen, right? They made it in the future and they sent it back in time.
Forward in time
into the future.
The United States was devastated in nuclear. Well, actually, the whole planet was devastated in nuclear winter war. So I guess going in for so they wrote that song about that timeline. But yeah, that's why. Anyway, we jumping around here too much here, but yeah. So you can go listen to that. But okay, okay. Now let's discuss about so when you would go back in time, and you were there for lifetimes. Did you ever make friends with the people there, or did you have to like keep to yourself?
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things I wanted to address. Is I would go through the portal sometimes, and there'd be people like, "Dude, I have a wife and I have kids now, man. Like I have a family. I have a life here. Why can't you? I don't want to go back right now. Like." And I'd be like, "Sorry, soldier, your gig's up. You did what you did your job. You're coming back to base." And they'd be like, "But you can just come and take me at the end of my life. It will make no difference to you. Just let me finish my life. I'm so my wife needs to know what happens to me. Like I can't just leave my kids. Like." And I'd be like, "Sorry, you're coming with me." And sometimes they freak out and try to attack me and kill me, and I'd have to fucking kill them. And it got to the point where, depending on who we're extracting, we do it with a team because we knew they were going to freak out. And so, yes, you would make bonds with the people there. You would get attached to people. Earlier in history, we could do it so a lot. It was so easy before cameras and stuff like that. Once cameras and stuff came along, it got harder. And we had to take more precautions and give the like if there's somebody out there right now who's a Montauk sleeper agent, they probably go to work and they probably go home and they don't talk to anyone. And if anyone tries to come over, they'll politely, try to, like, Joseph talked about this. Like, go, you have this programming you just keep to yourself, and you just think you're just an introvert. It's not like you think it's weird. You just don't like people or whatever. And so, yeah, they take precautions. There are, we've done missions in the future where they have to give you an artificial identity and put you in the system, or they'll figure out that you're not from there. Like, it's a lot more work as technology gets more advanced to implant time agents and have them do stuff. It's a lot more sophisticated. But when it comes to pre-1900, or pre-1800s, pre-cameras, basically, very easy. And then even when cameras came around, and not everyone had a smartphone in their pockets, I remember going to places and be like, "Hey, we know you have a photo of so and so. Basically, we will give you X amount of money for it," or we'd threaten them, depending on how well we were doing at the time or how badly we needed it or whatever. But I remember times where time travelers ended up in photographs, and we had to go find the people who took the photos and get the photos from them, and basically told them that if you still have a copy of this and you're not telling us, we will find you, we will kill you and your whole family. Like, that's what we would tell them. And then we would open up a lot of the times we would use the portal to demonstrate that, like, we're not fucking around. We literally will find you. Like, anywhere you're not safe.
Wow. Well, I want to mention two different things. First of all, I'm going to just share my screen real quick. There's an episode of have you watched the show, The Orville?
Yeah, I've watched The Orville. I love it. It's a great show.
On season 3, there's an episode where one of the agents got sent back to the year Gordon was sent back to the year 2015, and he was living out his life, and then the Orville was able to go back in time to retrieve him, but almost like 30 years later, and he already had a family and child, and they said, "Well, we're back. We're here to rescue you." And he didn't want to go back because of that. So then they had to go back in time and get him before he had all, try to get him within a week of him depositing in 2015. Anyway, so go check that out. So
that's interesting. That must be a newer one. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, season 3. But
okay.
And then the other thing is, now I don't even remember what it is, so it's not important. Let's move on. Okay. Okay. Do you want to discuss about the Stanborough Castle? What is that?
Okay, so Stanborough Castle was in a time bubble operated by Marduk. And Marduk, he's one of the 7 Sumerian gods or whatever. And in the original timeline, I was somewhat of this sounds narcissistic and crazy, but I guess I was somewhat of a god too, like the Sumerian. But he Marduk, yeah. So that was a portal that was operated by Marduk, and it was well not it was a time. Yeah, and see, here's the thing: is here's the story behind this castle. It's a dilapidated old ruins of a castle. It's not a castle anymore, and the story behind it is that a 17th century royal, or no, not royal, noble from Normandy, uh, basically built the castle to look dilapidated because he wanted to establish himself in England and make it look like his family had been there for longer. Which, to me, in my opinion, is just historians trying to explain an anomaly that they can't explain. Because what really happened is we did a mission at Montauk where we went to that castle and just fucking obliterated it. We literally just it was a bloodbath trying to get Marduk, and we still didn't get him. He escaped or whatever. But that's why that castle is in ruins, and that's why, like, all of a sudden there's just this castle in ruins, and no one knows where it comes from, because yeah, the we went there, and basically it used to be huge. It used to be a lot more than what it was. Let's put it that way. And I don't think that was the only castle that he operated either. I don't think that was the only time bubble that Marduk, because I also remember another one that was like more elevated, and it's you can look down at the people below from it and stuff like that. So I don't think Stanborough Castle was the only time bubble that Marduk had even either. Because I remember another place that looked totally different than there, but that was one of the places, and I spent a lot of time there.
And didn't you say that I was also on that mission too?
Yeah, it was kind of more than a mission. It was like a life that we lived. But yeah, you were there, and you were more or less in your natural form when you were there. You were like it's hard to describe the way you look, but you were like kind of like an alien. And because it was a time, okay, the Dark Ages, right? People couldn't read or write. That's because Shahami human hybrids are the royals. Okay, Anunnaki human hybrids, whatever you want to call them, they're the royals, and the human beings, Homo sapiens, they're the slaves, right? The Shahami, the Anunnaki, they had to leave Earth. So in their place, they put these hybrids to rule over us. Those are the royals, and that's why the Dark Ages were a thing. Human beings weren't allowed to read and write. It was punishable by death. We were a slave race for these people. That's all we were, and they created religions to make us think that it was all for our best interest, and we just had to listen to them. And with technology and stuff like that, they could make themselves appear, like as gods or whatever. But yeah, we were slaves. The human beings lived in like slave cities. Like they openly ate people and stuff like that. Like everyone knew that they were slaves. Like, and that is what the Dark Ages were. And that's kind of like, as far as when we leave the time bubble, like for Marduk, like I think that's when he placed that time bubble in England, was during the Dark Ages. That's when it was placed there. Who's this?
This is a Shahami child. I thought I would share that. Anyway,
Okay.
It's a horrible resolution, but it's all I have. And the person that gave it to me. Anyway, I'm not going to say anything. Just say I didn't tell you. I don't know anything about it. Okay.
I mean that looks like it doesn't look wrong to me. So
yeah. All right. So how about you explain who is this Marduk and why were we trying to infiltrate him?
Okay, so the first thing I want to explain about this is literally my origin story. I'm still trying to understand it. There's a lot of screen memories. There's a lot of fuckery. But essentially, Marduk is one of the original Anunnaki that came here to Earth, and basically there are multiple different ET races in on creating humans as a slave race. We wanted to create a race of servants that served us so that we didn't have to do all the hard work, like iron ore mining and buildings, construction, even stuff like serving us their food, everything. We just didn't want to have to do the work. So, hey, why not make this race that just does it all for us? And they worship us as God, so they want to do it. They love doing it. They think it's the greatest thing ever to do it. It's in their programming to just serve us. It's just the greatest thing ever for them. So therefore, they're not slaves because they love it. They're servants, right? So that's what we did. We created humanity. And Marduk was a big player in that, just like his brothers Enlil and Anu and all these other different figures. There's the Anunnaki wasn't. There are multiple different alien races that were a part of this, and then there are also a lot of different alien races who were against the idea of creating humans to be slaves. This race, and there's actually a galactic hearing on it, and it barely passed, and it only passed because of corruption, and everybody knew it. But anyway, we ended up creating a slave race, and what ended up happening is the reason why I'm called Arkheim Ra is because I left and I came back, and it had been like, I don't know, a decent amount of time had passed. And what happened is, like, human beings had become self-aware. They knew what we were. They knew that we weren't gods. We just had technology. Some of them were becoming ascended masters, like Christ consciousness beings. And we didn't know that could happen. It basically was just like, we got back and there's this child race that has access to God tier level technology. And we were terrified. We're like, this is bad. Like, no, we can't have this. So we had another meeting with the Draco, and the Shahami, and basically we had a meeting about it, and we were like, look, we wanted servants, not slaves. These are slaves now. This is morally, unethically wrong. The legal implications of this are different now because they're self-aware. And the Anunnaki was basically all the other groups that were involved that were like, dude, we have way too many resources in the human race. They're doing this over here, they're doing that over there, they're fighting our wars. Like, it's too late to just let them do their own thing or whatever it is that they're like, no. They're like, tell you what, you can do what you want with your slaves, kill them all. And that was the best solution and it is in the hieroglyphics, okay, that Ra came, and the sound of the humans mating offended their ears and all that stuff, and we came and tried to kill them all. And the cat people were the one who came down to kill all the humans because they fucking hated us to begin with, and they're the ones one of the people at the very beginning of her, like, this is a mistake, you shouldn't do this, and we didn't listen to them, and they're more than happy to go down to Earth and start slaughtering the cockroach humans. And that didn't work out for us because we bred humans to be fighting in our wars. They're like fucking really hard to fight against. Like, they might be dumb, but they fight wars really well. So we're like, oh shit, man, this isn't working out how we expected it to at all. And then what happened is what was referred to as the Great Betrayal. Because what happened is I had a meeting with King Solomon, and he expected me to be like, try to give him terms and conditions of surrender. And I was like, no, that's not what's going on here. You're sentient, you're self-aware, you're a child race, you're our children, we're responsible for you, and we're sorry for just trying to kill you all. Like, that was wrong of us, and now we're going to fight along your side. And the Great Betrayal happened, and basically us, along with humans, the Ra, my people, which are bird people, what Corey Good would call the blue avians, but it's a bunch of bullshit. That's not the real narrative. We're a bunch of different colors. We're not blue, but that's a whole other thing. But anyway, we fought in this war, and we attacked. I remember we attacked a Draco space station, and it was just a bloodbath, and this war broke out between the Draco and basically like the Ra, my people, and we lost big fucking time. We got our asses handed to us, and we kind of knew that was going to happen, but we had to try because we felt like what was going on was wrong, and we felt backed in the corner, and we felt like it was the only thing we could do. And so essentially what ended up happening to me is during this war, I got stabbed in the heart by Uriel, and he killed me. And I remember another thing too is I remember before the war broke out, I remember going to my slaves and then being like, we worship Yahweh now. And I remember being like, no, Ra is your one true God. And they're like, no, we worship Yahweh. Yahweh is the one true God. You are a false God. And I was like, who speaks this blasphemy? Come forward. And this guy came forward. And I was like, all right, you think this is true? You're going to die for it. He's like, I don't care. I'm going to go to heaven with Yahweh. So I consulted the Yahweh about it, the Shahami, the archangels about it. I was like, hey man, you can't just take my slaves. And they're like, dude, you're just gonna kill them all. Like we're just doing you a favor. And I was like, they knew they were being assholes. I was like, that's not how this fucking works. You can't just take them, but we don't want them to be slaves. They're self-aware. They're aware enough where we don't want them to be slaves. And he's like, no, we're not going to just let you kill them all. We put a lot of resources into this stuff, and if you want to fight over it, we can fight over it. And we did end up fighting over it. And basically what ended up happening is it was the Great Betrayal, and I was friends with Marduk. So Marduk fucking hates my guts because of what happened, because he felt so betrayed because of what I did. And in this timeline or whatever, he kidnapped me and brought me to that castle before I even betrayed him. Like, before I even did what I was going to do. And I found out later that was why he took me and hated me so much. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy, and why is he, you know what I mean? Like, why the fuck is he making me do all this fucked up shit? And eventually I found out, like, I knew him, that in the original timeline what happened, I didn't remember it. And like, yeah, I found out that I betrayed him, basically. But yeah, he started altering. There used to be like statues of me, a bird person, like accurate depiction. Like, you can still find some old books with that depiction of the pyramids with the bird person statue in front of it. But he wiped me out of history intentionally, got rid of me from history as a punishment for me betraying his trust. Yeah, he looks like an alligator person. I don't know why the depictions of the Anunnaki in the Sumerian tablets are humans. I do know that they can make themselves appear as whatever they want because they're very advanced, and ancient humans were probably more likely to listen to a humanoid than a reptile. So I don't know what that is. I don't know if they literally at one point were in human bodies. I mean, body swapping is a thing that there's that show on Netflix that just kind of shows it. It's like, yeah, man, once technology gets advanced enough, consciousness, you can just put it in, switch it around, do stuff to it. It's kind of crazy what you can do. But yeah, that's the story of Marduk. That's where he comes from. He had his own time bubble. And it interacted with our time bubble, and eventually in 2014, because we were competing with each other, but we tried to make deals with each other, we tried to be cool with each other, we tried, and it didn't work. And eventually in 2014, Marduk came to Montauk with a bunch of mercenaries and forced us out of Camp Hero. And as far as I know, that's, there's a bunch of Draco that run Montauk now, and Montauk as a program got moved around a lot. I can't say where it all went. I don't remember, but some people have said that it was in Indiana at one point. I've heard that it was at Camp Warden in Washington at one point. It's probably been all over the place, Well,
I think Alana Denon, she says that the Galactic Federation is going to allow humanity to have a choice whether to continue serving the Anunnaki or to be their own free race. So hopefully that will all work out to our advantage without a nuclear war ending this timeline. But all right,
that's not in anybody's best interest, and I think that what we have on our side is nobody wants to blow up the planet. There's no group where it's like, this is what we want, and the only way that that's ever going to happen if it's like a last resort to a group who's just like, man, like just wants to show the finger that hard to us. But no, the Earth is an extremely valuable resource. And they don't want that to happen, and that's why it's been averted so many times. Because it's
a negative AI from the future, the Borg cyborg timeline. But yeah, I think that's all dissipating anyway. That energy. So, all right, let's discuss. Did they ever send weapons back in time, or did you ever recover technology back in time?
I actually covered that. Earlier in the interview, yes, we would go back in time to take technology, sometimes because we wanted to use it and we thought it was valuable to us, so we went there to take it, and other times it was just to make sure nobody else got it, or to make sure that the average normal man didn't know it existed. We wiped out history. Earth was thriving, had all sorts of different ET races on it. It was an insane place to be. And it got turned into what it is now. I mean, it was never perfect. Earth always had its problems. It was kind of wild west of space, kind of. It's always been a really wild place. It's never been. I mean, there was the kind of the Garden of Eden. There was a time a long time ago where things were perfect, but it's been very tumultuous on Earth. Earth is very much like the Afghanistan of space. It's just in a really strategic region that people always want to occupy, and we get screwed over by it. It's not our fault. It's just our geographic location.
Can you describe some of the technology that you would have recovered?
Looking glass technology, portals, stargates. We would just take them to Montauk, which that's very complicated procedure because you have to turn off the stargate and then turn it on again, I'm pretty sure, in order to bring it through, like bringing a portal through a portal, like that's kind of a, but I'm pretty sure we did that. Another thing that we would do is there was this guy, actually, his name was Martin Freud, and he was going to invent anti-grav tech for the Germans really early in the war, and it just basically because of that we got our asses handed to us. I think that's what he did, and I remember something that we would do is I killed this guy before he ever even invented that technology. I sent a letter, or put a letter in his mailbox saying, "Meet me in front of the church at whatever time. I have something to tell you." And I remember, I think it was in Norway, or something like that. I can't remember what it was, some European town, and I was in a bell tower with the bell behind me, and I had a sniper rifle, and when he went to the front of the church, I sniped him out before he ever could even have the idea of inventing anti-grav tech. So we recovered technology to use it. We recover technology to erase it from history, and sometimes we would erase people from history so that they never would invent said technology.
Well, if they have all this advanced technology in Montauk, why don't they try to release it to the public so that we can, the Americans can control it?
Because Montauk was its own entity, its own government, it's an Air Force project that went rogue, out of control, right? Even when the Air Force did have control of Montauk, the U.S. government didn't have control of it. I mean, it's what Eisenhower warned us about, the military-industrial complex taking over everything. That's what happened. So, no, you and I are never going to have access to portal technology. You and I are never going to have access to time travel technology. This idea that there's a disclosure looming on the horizon is, to me, false. I think that they're going to do everything they can to make us not know the truth, because so they can keep taking advantage of the human race, and it is up to us to disclose this. We are disclosure. There is no fucking CIA agent that's going to go on TV and say what's happening. And if that does happen, it's a CIA agent. You probably should be a little concerned about listening to them and believing what they have to say. So it's like
then they could go back to Montauk and erase them from history.
Yeah, that's another thing that's complicated. And like I said, there's certain stuff that we're too far in the game to do anymore. The timeline's sentient, so there's certain changes. If you went back and tried to reset, because it takes a certain amount of energy for the timeline to reset itself, right? So if you go back in time and you change something drastically enough, the timeline is going to just try to correct it over and over again in different ways. So because it'll take so much energy in order to correct the time itself, right? So there are a lot of things that are sort of set in stone that we can't change, and I think that Project Phoenix happening is kind of one of those things where so much happened during Project Phoenix that if you were to go back in time and try to stop it from happening or whatever, I feel like it would end up correcting itself, because it would take such an enormous amount of the timeline energy for the timeline to make that large of a correction. That's why when we changed things, we realized that we couldn't go too hard with it. We had to kind of do it incrementally, because if we tried to change stuff too fast, the timeline would try to recorrect it.
Can you tell us what is the difference between Project Montauk and Project Pegasus?
Project Pegasus was a preliminary time travel project, and I believe the difference is the Air Force ran Montauk, and some other, maybe it was the Navy that ran Project Pegasus. I don't know. I forget. I know Andrew Brasiago talks about Project Pegasus. But yeah, two different time travel projects.
Yeah, he said Donald Rumsfeld ran that. He called Rummy. But so in Pegasus they would have used the jump rooms, I guess, technology. Where in Montauk they had the port. I guess they both had portal tech, but the mechanism would have been a different delivery mechanism.
Yeah, because there's artificial portals. Here's another thing that I remember is during an extraction. I remember being extracted. In fact, I can't go into the details about it, but there was a mission where Joseph Powell and I were getting extracted, and essentially we knew something was up and we didn't know what it was, so we were kind of in hiding. And one day we got a knock on our door, and they're like, "This is the Temporal Authority. We need you to let us come in." And we're like, "What the fuck is the Temporal Authority?" And we're just like, "Go away," or whatever. Like, get a warrant. And they're like, "You're either going to open this door for us or we're going to break it down." And we're like, "All right." And we open the door, and it's these guys in like blue uniforms, and like they got body bags, black body bags, and they're just like there's like we have to do. There's a situation. You've accomplished what we need to accomplish, and we're doing an extraction. We're bringing you back to base, and we don't have memory. We got our memories wiped, so we both look at each other like, "Back to base? What the fuck are you talking about?" I'm like, "Don't worry, soldiers. It'll all make sense." When they were calling Joseph Commander, he's like, "What the fuck, Commander?" They're like, "Don't worry, it's gonna all make sense when you get back to base." And we're like, "Dude, what is going on? Can you answer any of our questions, please? Like, back to basic. What are you talking about?" He's like, "It'll all make sense in a moment. Whatever you do, do not glance to your right." And we look to our right, and they're opening up these body bags, and it's our fucking dead bodies. It's me and Joseph. And we're playing video games with our neighbor. So our neighbor was over, and he's freaking out. He's like, "What the fuck?" And he and there's a guy, he has a backpack on, he takes it out, and he's like setting up this thing on the wall, and it's a portal. He had an artificial portal in his backpack that he was able to just piece and put together, and once he pressed the button, it turned on. And then he grabbed me, and they grabbed us, me and Joseph, and I'm pretty sure what they did is they killed the neighbor guy that was with us and made it look like he killed us and killed himself. But they brought us to the portal, brought us back to base, and read our codes to us, or did the tones or whatever. And then all of a sudden, that altar that we created went back into our minds, and we came to the surface, and it makes you feel sick, and you start vomiting from it, and then you're back at base. But it was literally like, they're like, "It'll all make sense when you get back to base, Commander." It's like almost comical. We're like, "What the fuck? Back to base, soldier?" Like, dude, we're not soldiers. Like, what are you talking about? Like, and yeah, no, it turns out we were on a mission. We were totally unaware. That's so they have artificial portals that are dialed into a time and place. Apparently, I don't know how it works, but they knew that they could bring that portal with them and bring us right back to Montauk, no problem. I don't know why they didn't just portal into our living room. I don't know why they did it that way, but that's how they did it.
Well, if they have all this time travel tech and portal tech, surely they would have looked into the future to see what we would become of these experiments and the disclosure process. I mean, weren't they concerned about that, or were they trying to change things that wouldn't happen, or what do you think?
Project Phoenix 3 is the reason why we have our memories. If Project Phoenix 2 would have been successful, if Junior would have never happened, I think things would be a lot different. And the reason why we're here today talking and why we're entering a more positive timeline is because of Project Phoenix 3, I think. It's because of the work done there and because of the work done by other similar groups. I can only imagine, because what these people do is they try to take some of the most it is what it is, some of the most powerful beings in the universe and harness their power, basically. What happens a lot of the time is they end up getting fucked over by that, and the guinea pigs end up taking over. I mean, at least that's what happened at Montauk. And I think that's the reality of this is they tried to take away our free will, and once they were able to for a certain amount of time, but eventually we got our free will back. And I think right now we're all fighting like hell to not end up where we were going to end up, because it goes against our best interests, you know?
Yeah, here's a comment. This actually sounds like New Skin who's writing this, but blue uniforms, Nacht Waffen Regier, Merchant Fleet Cover Ops, Interception Squad. Tony Rodriguez had uniform. Yeah.
Yeah, blue uniforms are usually Solar Warden, but I don't know why the Montauk guys that came and got us had the blue uniforms on, but they did.
Okay.
All
right.
But yeah.
Well, let's go on to the next question. The burning of the Library of Alexandria. What do you know about that? And
I believe we were involved in that. I believe that we set it up so that would happen. But I don't have memories of it, so I can't tell you.
Okay.
But I might have even been there, but I don't remember. So
there were a lot of, because humanity was a slave race, and a lot of the religious texts and works of that period were all of manipulating humanity anyway. So if the burning of Alexandria didn't happen, we would probably have, like in Christianity, would you go to one priest and try to find God, in the Catholic Church anyway, there would probably be 6 levels of priests, and you would never be able to get. Yeah. So in many ways, burning of Alexandria is probably a good thing, although it's kind of sad to lose knowledge, but I guess it is what it is. Maybe in the future we'll have time travel tech and we recover the good books, and if there was any.
Yeah, it is very much a travesty that occurred there. And obviously they're wiping out history. I mean, it doesn't get any more obvious than that. It's literally burning down a building full of history. So that was intentional, people. Good news, there's a giant library in Timbuktu that we still have. Found that out recently. I don't know much about it. I just read a little article on it, but it seems really interesting, and I hope we find a lot of good stuff in those books. And
in the Vatican Library too.
Yeah, we need that stuff disclosed. We deserve to know our own history. We deserve to know where we come from. You know what I mean?
All right. I guess that's basically it for my. Well, how do they use mind control in Montauk? I get. Did you go into that, the mind control aspect?
Okay, so mind control. Obviously they were testing stuff out with the radar tower where they could like literally beam a thought in your head and like control you like a remote control car, and that did work, and they did that did Duncan Cameron. But it was deeper than that for us. It was psychological manipulation is what it was. So what they would do is they twin you with someone, trauma twin you, put you in a situation where you're getting hurt and someone comes in and rescues you, or vice versa, and then you become bonded with this person, and basically you would be rewarded with each other's presence. If you did well, you could see your twin. If you didn't do well, they would torture your twin in front of you. You'd have to watch your twin get gang raped, all sorts of terrible shit. Or they'd force you to be part of the gang rape of your twin. Really terrible things. But yeah, they would use your trauma twin, not meaning like they look like you or something like that, meaning your twin flame maybe. It didn't necessarily have to be, but like a person that you would fall in love with, and then they would those two energies would create a third energy and create more power. And a lot of times they would send you on missions together too, and that would be like a reward, right? Getting to live lifetimes together. And another reward was if you did really well at Montauk, they would promise you, and I don't know how true it is or not, but they did it for me. They would place you and your trauma twin in the same town if you did well enough, and if you did bad and disobeyed, they would make sure you're placed really far away from each other to where you'll probably never meet each other. But yeah, that was the main way that they would manipulate us, is through love. And that's what I want people to understand is they inverted us. We are not all evil. What we did at Montauk was evil, but what they did was invert good people. They took our love for the people we cared about, and that's what they used to make us evil. And eventually, after you go through it enough, you become cold, you become unfeeling, and you do not want to love anyone, and you don't. You do it out of self-protection for yourself. That's why we have alters that are so fucking evil. It's because they know that anyone they love or anything that they care about is just something that gets put in the toolbox to be used against them later. So that's why we have these alters that become so emotionless and vicious, because it's either fight or get beaten the fuck up. It's either torture or get tortured. It's either, you know, do what you're told and and tell others to do what they're told, or you get get put through the ringer. And I mean, if you didn't obey what they're doing, one of the worst things that they would do to you is they would send you into the room, with the Draco feeding room, for you to get eaten alive. Like, the ways that they would torture us, the ways they psychologically, they mind controlled us with torture, with torturing us, and with our love for other people. That's how they manipulated us. And they had portals. There's no way to get away from them. And you couldn't kill yourself. You just wake up there over and over again. There was literally no escape. So you had to listen to them. If you didn't, you just live in hell.
Wow. You know, I've noticed over the years, the people that are involved in these projects, they have this subconscious programming related to the trauma that affects them in the here and now. It sabotages their own lives.
Yes.
So maybe not necessarily, I mean, you probably are a targeted individual, but let's talk about the here and now. What is your life like? Do you find that they're also trying to beat you down quite a bit, or?
Yeah, what they did is they turned my twin against me by making me hurt my twin, basically, and have them, that be their last memory of me, is me hurting them. And it's really bad. I've been in love with my twin my whole life. I've had a love for them that's so strong that I couldn't even understand it. I could never understand where it came from until I found out about Montauk. Yeah, it affects my life. Because I talk to people like you, being in the music industry, people think that I'm some sort of fucking, you know, like I talk about Germans in space and stuff. They think I'm a Nazi now. I'm not. I think that the Nazis are fucked up. So that's fucked up my life, is people think that I'm not like PC enough anymore, or that I went crazy. So they don't want to associate with me. So that's messed up my music career. And then also my jobs oftentimes have to do with the programs. I don't want to go into detail because I did an interview with Penny where people figured out where I worked, and she had to scrub the interview because of it. But like, I'm still targeted in my day-to-day life. I find out something as normal as my cleaning job is connected to the programs. Like, it's craziness. And so yeah, it's like kind of like they do mess with you in your life. A lot of the programming that they do at Montauk is so that you aren't a powerful person in your normal life, because that's the last thing that they want, is for us to be powerful, to be confident, to be movers and shakers in this world. They want us pushed into a corner. And that's what they've been trying to do to me. I can tell, it's clear as day. They're trying to fucking push me into a corner. I'm trying to get out of that corner, but it's really hard.
Yeah, I hear you. I feel you. This is a common story of a lot of experiencers involved in these, especially particularly Montauk. Their lives are pretty much trashed because their subconscious programming is sabotaging. But, you know, hopefully, you know, in the future, provisions can be provided to help people like us.
There are timelines that I've seen where there is a Montauk tribunal that happens, and I get to testify at it. I don't know if you testify, James, because you don't actually have any memories, but pretty much everybody that has memories testifies at it. I know that they end up creating a memorial, and that the media wanted to go into it, and Joseph and somebody else in this community stood by the gate with guns and told them, "You're going to let these fucking people grieve. No media is going to ever come inside of this place. This is for us, not you." So there is hope that we can end up on that timeline again. And I really, really hope we do, because we deserve to fucking grieve what happened to us. We deserve to not have fragmented memories and have to talk to each other on the internet and grasp at straws and have to deal with screen memories. We deserve to know what the fuck happened to us. We deserve to see paperwork. We deserve to see justice. And the least they could do is recognize that this happened and build a memorial for those 10,000 fucking kids who got sent through those portals and never came back.
Yeah. Well, I put out this project a couple years ago. Nothing ever came of it because nobody even recognizes that we're real. So I was gonna give us real money, but
Someday we will get our memorial, and not only that, we don't have to do a GoFundMe. It's going to be the government that pays for it.
Well, what idea was to do like a virtual reality exhibit, but not too many people are into VR. But maybe that'll change in the future. But
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a good thing that people aren't into VR. I think that's part of us being on the positive timeline, right? Like the metaverse got rolled out, and they're like, "Why isn't anybody using this?" And it's like, because we know that this is weird and creepy. That's why, guys. Like, come on, like. We like living in the real world. It's fun. Like we don't want to go on the internet and live our entire lives on it. Sorry. Like, but no, VR is cool. It would be cool to have a VR, like as far as something like that. Like I think that'd be really nice. So that way people don't have to physically travel and they can grieve. I don't know. That's a really great idea, James. I'm just saying, as far as the VR not taking hold, I'm kind of glad. I know you know what I mean.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that's my website, truesourcekey.org. I don't ever really advertise that one because it's like waiting for some money to come in that never happens. But anyway, okay. So I actually had another question on my list that kind of got buried. I wanted to ask you if you knew any of the main perps of the program, like Gloria Vanderbilt, who was supposedly my handler. The bitch gone now, and then the Queen of England, or some people even say George Bush Sr. was there. Go ahead.
I remember interacting with the Queen of England. I remember being knighted by her after doing a time mission to where we got rid of Tartaria, the Tartarian Empire or whatever. I can't go into detail on that. A lot of what I'm finding out with the Tartarian Empire is like my own research, not from memories, but there is something there to that. I don't know how much of the information you find out is accurate, and the world is not fucking flat, but there's something there to that. And I do remember interacting with the Queen, being knighted by her, so you can call me Sir Arkheim. I'm just kidding. But no, fuck that bitch though. I don't feel any pride in being knighted by her. She's an evil piece of shit. I also remember interacting with Pope Benedict, the Pope before the last, the one that just died. I talked with John Whitberg about this yesterday. He was doing this thing where he was trafficking children from Haiti to be turned into cyborgs, and he was selling the cyborgs. And we basically went there and told them to stop. And he basically said, "Who are you people? I'm like I'll have you killed. Like I'm more powerful than you think I am." Blah blah blah. And I remember knocking off his fucking Pope hat and saying, "You ain't shit compared to us. You're going to fucking listen to us, or you're not gonna like what's gonna happen to you." And he said some shit. He swore in German. And there was this girl that was there with us who's not public, and she goes, "Hey, you're in a church. Don't swear." Or don't swear. You're in a church. And yeah, we basically told them, you can't traffic these kids to be turned into cyborgs. You're not safe anywhere you go. We have portals. And he didn't listen. We had to scare him like 2 or 3 more times and kill a couple of people that he knew for him to fucking listen to us. But eventually we got him to listen, and that's part of the reason why he got fired and stuff, was because he stopped that program. It's a whole thing. But yeah, the Catholic Church is involved in heinous shit. I remember seeing one of the popes, not that pope, at Montauk getting his dick sucked by a little boy. I don't know which pope it is, but if I looked at pictures of him, I'd be able to pick them out. And they came to Montauk. They had access to Montauk. The Catholic Church is a huge part of Montauk. The Catholic Church is mind control institution. That's what it is. That's what the church is. And before Montauk, there was the church. You know what I mean? This is ancient. They've got time. They're part of Project Looking Glass. They're part of Montauk Project, the Catholic Church. They're huge part of this. And yes, they are the Luciferian order, but they worship Baphomet, and Baphomet is an ET race. They come out of a portal. When they sacrifice these kids, they feel the dark energy of it, and they come out of a portal and they feast on these kids, and the people get power of it out of it. And their whole thing is, we meet our God. Our God actually comes to us. Your God is this far off thought. No, we physically see our God in the flesh. He comes through a portal, and we do this ritual with our God. And the thing is once you make arrangements with these beings and you don't keep on giving them kids, They will come after your children. They will appear in your home. They will come after you and your family. So you have to keep on, once you're in this, you have to keep on kidnapping kids and feeding them to them. That's how all these programs work. It's the same, it's all these Illuminati families. The kids that are born into them either become vicious as fuck and act as their parents do, or they get stomped on like cockroaches, like bugs. That's how this works. Like, you have to be vicious or you will not survive. And that's how they invert people and turn them so evil against their own best wishes, because people do it out of self-preservation.
There's a comment from Christy about the Vatican looks like a giant snake wearing a crown with 2 eyes and a forked tongue. My hand. Let's say a person who claimed to be my handler said that they would send me back in time to service Lincoln, as a kid. So, do you think that? Do you have memories, anything like that? They send.
It's possible. I mean, they do fucked up stuff like that. I don't know if that's true or not.
This guy, Landra Markman, he's been on the show. He said that they sent him back in time to the Merovingian bloodlines, and they were basically they're all PDOs, so they were using them on kids as treats to them, I guess.
Yeah, so that's a part of this, man. It's like, people do need to understand that, like, there is, of course, like, I mean, I know I'm talking to this community, not like the average person, but I guess I'm sort of trying to, for people who are watching this that are maybe more normal, closed-minded, whatever you want to call it, more mainstream, like, why do people not think that there's child sex trafficking going on? Like, I get it. Like, there's been situations where there's been hoaxes and silly things that got blown out of proportion that were false. But why does anyone think that there aren't children being trafficked by the church? How many kids have to come forward? How many fucking children have to sue popes and priests and stuff like that before people realize this isn't accidental? This is institutionalized. This is a cornerstone of their religion, is touching little kids. And it's originally how they fractured us and programmed us, is by raping us. That's where it comes from. The technology has become more advanced, but that's how they do it. When you rape a kid, it fractures them, and that was how they would create altars in the ancient times. And this isn't new. This is ancient. This is older than you could even fathom.
Wow. All right. Well, we're at 2 hours, so we should probably wrap it up here. Maybe I'll just leave it this one last question. Actually, it's not even a question; it's a comment. So let's. Oh wait, Ibis.
Yes, I worked at Project Ibis. I don't know that much about it, but I was transferred there. I talked with some people about it recently. I worked at Project Ibis. I also was part of the Stargate project. Pretty much like all the main key players of Montauk were at the Stargate project. We basically they knew that we worked and they're doing a similar thing and got our codes, and we worked there too. So,
yeah, in northwest of Edmonton, Canada. Also, the China Lake facility was taken out. So it's all great news. Okay, well, let's go ahead and wrap it up here. If you want to reach out to Arkheim, his email is in the description. If you'd like to learn more about the work that I do, you can go to supersoldiertalk.com and check out different links. I've got some of John Whitberg's posts on there too.
By the way, you need to get us both on your show sometime, because we'd be able to give you some incredible testimony if we were both together on your show.
All right. Well, let's work to go for that goal maybe near the end of February.
Sounds good.
Yeah, just keep hitting me up and I will try to get that schedule for you. So, also listeners, be sure to subscribe to some channel. This is going on YouTube, my backup, because my main channel has got more strikes. Actually, the backup has a strike too. But if they can the channel, I'll set up another. Also, go to Rumble, please. That's where ultimately all the content.
My advice to everybody on here is just go to Rumble, man. All these alternative sites that are popping up, support them, because YouTube it's basically becoming dead to us now. Like, they don't want us talking about this stuff, obviously. And all they have to do is, just find one little thing and you know what I mean, your video gets flagged and then it's taken down. So it's like, just go somewhere where they let you say what you want. Like,
And
people need. Sorry.
yeah, go ahead, get a copy of my book at Neological Tech. There was some other stuff. I do talk a little bit about Montauk, but there was the confessionals. The Draco had these confessional booths where they would carve a pentagram into your chest and harvest your blood and have you drink it, and then they would they were like the Thub and Draco were this particular class. They were like the third lieutenant, like the third levels in hell of beings. So they were trying to recreate their hell on Earth through us. They were abducting angelics in humanoid form to to get our power because they didn't have any. And so in the end, I think it's all going to backfire on them. Of course,
I think that we're on the right track right now. I mean, we got our agitators and people trying to stop what we're doing, and it's not working very well. I would say that we're on the path to good things and disclosure happening, and I just want to remind people that, you know, you matter, whether you're public or not, whether you can't make sense of your memories or not, whether, you know, everybody that's a part of this, we all matter. We all have our piece, and nobody is alone. Like, this is a community, and we look out for each other. And we need to remember that, whether your alters have differences in the programs, or even if you have, you know, disagreements with people that you served with in the here and now, we still need to stick together, because that's all we have, man, is the fact that we know that we went through this, and all we have is each other. So I just want to say that I'm here for anybody who's been through this, and you know, it includes you, James, and man, we're gonna make it through the other side of this stronger, better. We will get we will become fully assimilated. We will become the sum of the pieces that we are now. We will become whole again, and we will see justice. And that's I guess what I'll end the interview on.
Thank you, Hanny. I have 8 videos or 8 strikes on that channel, but it's happened so slowly that it's like I put a video up and they take one down 3 months later. Then I go off probation another 3 months, and then again, you know, it's been going like this for 2.5 years. So amazingly, the account survived. So anyway, let's call it a day. Thank you all for listening in, and we'll all see you later. Thank you, Arkheim, too.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. Please consider supporting Super Soldier Talk by purchasing your own Neo Meditation device. Your Neo Meditation device will help you reduce stress, integrate trauma, enhance intuition, enhance clairvoyance, and enhance creativity. Get yours now at www.neologicaltech.com.